Okay, so actually, kind of go along with Chris. Chris and I were on the same ride one time. We came across 3 riders, and one guy had a flat tire, and none of them knew how to actually change the tire. Had the tools, but didn't have the know-how. So if you get a flat tire on your bike, you got a few options. One that we'll probably talk about a little bit later too is about riding out on the flat, which is possible. The hard part is how far are you going, and what's the terrain like, and what is your actual wheel like. So with the tire, you can either ride out on it, or the other thing you can do is we can patch the tube. So everybody's talking about their kits. I went into my garage there this morning, and I pulled out, here's a kit that I would have had way back when, riding around with. I've got a bunch of them. If you look inside, I've got fuses, I've got tie straps, a little bit of wire, a little bit of hose, and of course, I've got a patch kit. So here's what you should have with you. If you're going to patch, you're going to want some of your rubber cement for doing your patch. Patch, of course. The other thing that's important, if you buy a patch kit, it often comes with, it looks like a little piece of tin here and it's a little bit rough. What that is actually like a file. And the reason for that, and I don't know, Em, can you come in a little bit closer? If you look at the actual tube, you can see where you see the seams. It's like the casting. If your hole is right there, and this is going to be your patch, if you go to put that patch on there, if that seam, that high spot right there is there, it's not going to seal. So this, or what I also carry, is I carry a pretty heavy grit sandpaper. It could be emery cloth, and that is so that you can make that as flat as possible before you actually install your patch, okay? So putting into the patch, you're gonna have this part of the patch rips away. You're going to put down some contact cement on that area. Patch is gonna go on, and then the next part is, and this is where you're gonna use whatever's available. Whether it is one of your tire irons, you want to constantly, you're kneading that in there to make sure that that seal works on that tube so that it gets down perfectly. Whenever you're done, there's a piece of plastic on the back of this patch, and you're going to pull this plastic off, and then again, take your rubber cement and you're going to coat it all again. That is patching, okay? So that's an option. If you notice on this rim and tire, what I did was I only removed one side of the tire, because you can reach in, pull the tube out, you can find your hole, patch the hole, stuff it back in. Now, the other option is carry a tube. Now, if I'm carrying a tube, I only carry the front tube. And the reason why is I can take this front tube and I can actually install it in a rear tire. Now, it's a bigger diameter, but when it goes in, it'll fill up. And I can attest that I had that in, actually I was riding in PEI. I had a 500 KTM, and my rear tire, I got a hole in the tube, and I actually only had a front tire, installed it, and I rode it from one end of the island to the other end of the island. Absolutely no problem, got a new tube, changed it. So having a tube, there's no point carrying both tubes. It's about carrying as least as you can, and a front tube will work in a rear tire. When you go to put the tube in, or even after you patched it and you go to put it in, the other thing that I carry, and I don't have it here, but I would carry a Ziploc bag, and I will have baby powder with it. And the reason for the baby powder is and there's probably a few people that can attest to this if they've ever tried it. You patch the tire, you put it back in. Well, when you're trying to put the tire back onto the rim, right, using your actual tools, you'll pinch the tube again, and in which case you cause another hole. Purpose for the baby powder is if you take the baby powder and put it on the actual rim, or on the actual tube, what it does is it lubricates it. And when you go to put it in, if the tool happens to go across it, it's going to slide instead of pinching. So it's a lubricant that you can take that helps put it in. The last thing that I would suggest is that when you go to put the tube in, air it up a bit. Okay. Now, this is what I carry. It's a bicycle pump. It's small, it's light, and all you have, and it takes up very little space, and it works. So if you have this, you pump it up a little bit, and the idea is when you stick it into that actual tire, what you're trying to do is, if it's actually inflated, there's more of a chance that the tool will just glide by the tube instead of pinching it and causing yet another hole. So, tools that you need. Patch kit, if you can see here, it takes up very little space. Okay, you need patches, you need your glue, okay, and then of course the sandpaper or the little file. The other thing is you need your tire irons. If you look at your actual kit with your tool, with your bike, you're going to see one of them will actually have something for removing the tire at the back of it. Okay, and that's basically it. And like I said, if you want, carrying the baby powder, a little Ziploc bag full of it. It just helps when you're reinstalling it. And the only other thing, and I think Chris and I were talking about this yesterday, Chris used to carry a little bit of soap with him. And the reason for the soap is when you're trying to actually get the tire off, right, and you're using the tools, well, the rubber can be sticky, and what the soap will do is it'll act like a lubricant. And if you have any water around, you can mix it with it, or just use that water, and that'll help lubricate when you go to take the tire off of the rim. Okay? So if you have any questions, ask away. Otherwise, I guess we'll be on to the next thing.
Thanks, Greg. Any questions?
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there a correct side? Is there one side that should be down on the tube?
Yeah.
Because I always mess that up. There's, I don't know why, but that's me. So
The rest of us know why.
Yeah.
Comedians.
do we want to show how to break the bead with the kickstand?
So I looked at it this morning. So one of the problems too is if the bead ever gets stuck onto the rim. And what we're talking about with the bead is we're looking at this area right here. And if you look, this sets up right next to the actual rim part. And this part over time can get stuck. So that can be a hard part. If you're riding on it while it's flat, there's a good chance it's going to come loose. However, if it is stuck there, one of the tricks you can use is, because generally you're going to be stepping on it, right? Using your knees, trying to push that, to break that bead to get it to sit down. The other way that you can do it is you can also use your bike and the kickstand. So it's hard to do it here because the problem is that the bike it's too high, okay? So when the tube is sitting there, but you'd have to get the bike a little bit higher, and then just use your kickstand. Put your kickstand, let me flip this over. So what you want to do is you want to put your kickstand in this area right here, and then use the bike and the weight of the bike, and even yourself on the peg standing on it. That can also be used to help break that bead. Okay, make it loose, push it down off of the rim. All right. Chris, do you have any more questions?
I made a mistake.
Did you?
Yeah, but I didn't bring the tubeless repair kit. But I will speak to you about plugging a tubeless system. I've gone through, I'm like Larry, I ride moose. So flats to me are a thing of the past. I love it. I couldn't say enough good things about it, but I have run heavy duty tubes, which I've never had a problem with. Never done that. My only flat tire situations have been with the tubeless system. Running through, let's say, pit run, doing a north side ride and up to the lookout. There was a section of pit run, maybe fourth gear. got a flat. I'm talking a gouge in the rear tire, so it went completely flat. And before I started the climb, I put the bike down because there was no pressure on the low pressure side. We got to the top, I plugged it. It took 4 plugs for me to make the seal. When I'm running tubeless, I run with slime, the product you can buy that will seal as you're rolling small holes. So 4 plugs for this particular flat, and slime saw me carry out the rest of the day with maybe 6 to 8 PSI in the rear tire. Getting the plugs in and getting them to seal can be a little difficult, but you know, it's like plugging any other tire. You don't have to cut the nipples off the end once they're sticking out. They add as an extra knobby for your ride, and they give you a lot more traction. So having said that, I've run rear tires with as many as 6 different spots where I've had to plug the tire. It works. But yeah, it's neat. Any questions on that before we move on to the next section and talk about crank?
Yeah, we have one from Mark Chirelli, new rider here. Any tips for removing the rear wheel from the bike, or is the repair done with the wheel still on the bike?
Okay. I like to take the wheel off. You can do it with the wheel on. I prefer to take the wheel off, find a piece of wood in the woods where you can prop up and underneath the belly pan of the bike, so the bike will sit on its own, maybe a rock, or maybe just lay the bike down on its side. We've done repairs at hunting camps where there are rounds of wood, for example, and we put the bike up on that, pull the tire off, repair it, carry on.